Welcome, everybody, back again, the Lifestyle Balance Podcast. It's been a while. Today, we have a really awesome guest today, someone actually in a different field that we've never had before, so that's awesome.
Awesome.
I'm your host, Alex Marcolini. This is our co-host, Nick. And episode 32, guys. We're going strong, 32 episodes, so thank you for tuning in, and let's get it going. We'll run through of who our guest is, and then we'll start from there.
Love it. What's going on, guys? Thank you so much. My name is Anthony Ricciardi. I am an artist, a creative, an entrepreneur overall, based here in Toronto, but I do work all over the world. Growing up, I always wanted to be an artist, but it never seemed like a real career. Everyone's like, no one growing up says, hey, become an artist. That's going to be a viable thing.
Awesome.
So I went to Alabama State on a baseball scholarship.
Wow.
And then I pursued finance. So I studied finance. But the whole entire time, so I ended up graduating with a degree in finance, and I worked downtown for a real estate investment fund.
Okay.
And during that whole entire time, like every night and weekend, I painted. So I worked in finance for almost 5 years. And slowly but surely, like little things started to come up in the art world because I just kept painting. Like I was living at home at the time. My parents had this small greenhouse in the backyard that I would paint in. And I just kept going. I was like, let me just keep trying. I'm like, if I'm ever gonna do something crazy, like quit my job and become an artist, I might as well do it while we're young. And 7-8 years ago now, I left to pursue art, and I've never looked back. And I have galleries all over Toronto, Yorkville Village, in Pearson, Terminal 1, in our airport here. I was in Yorkdale for about 5 years, and then I do shows all over from Miami to Dubai to Australia to running around.
That's awesome. Good for you.
Fun,
That's
fun
crazy.
little journey.
Yeah. And so did you always have a passion for art when you were growing up at a younger age, or did it kind of start when you were going into finance and it was like an outlet type of thing?
A little bit of both. It's a great question. I always had a passion for art. My uncle was, my dad's brother was an artist, and he was a very, very big inspiration to me. But again, even him as an artist would tell me, like, this isn't like a real career. Like, it's really tricky. And unfortunately, when I was in university, he passed away. So when I came home,
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you. When I came home, I got all of his old art, his old poetry, his old writings, and I think it re-inspired me. Like looking back now, it definitely did.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't really realize it was, but it was, and I was inspired by all of his work, and I said, let me try this thing, and let me see if I can do what we said we were going to do.
Yeah.
And but then it was also an outlet. So that was the second part. So you're 100% right. I didn't realize, everyone always asks me now, like, you must have hated finance. That's why you want to become an artist. I'm like, I really didn't hate it. Like, I loved I'm still really good friends with all the people that I worked with.
Cool.
I actually really enjoyed the work. It was more of, I like this so much more. And I said, well, you got to be happy. So I wanted to try.
Wow. That's awesome. That's a cool story to hear. And so, like, when you first started in the industry, obviously, what was your first goal? Was it just like, okay, I gotta find my own path, make my own brand, or put myself out there and try to sell to businesses? Like, how did you go about it when you first started?
Yeah, lucky for me, going to school for business and finance definitely helped a lot.
Wow.
Because I wouldn't even think about selling art like how I'm selling now. It wasn't even like that. Like that wasn't even a goal. I didn't even know it was possible. It was just like, can I sell one canvas that I can afford two? So simple example, like if a canvas costs me 100, can I sell it for 200? And I can, I get 2 free paintings out of this, and I just keep going, keep rolling. It's always funny. I journal a lot, and I employ everyone to do that because I look back at my old journals from 10 years ago, 8 years ago, and my goals were hilarious. They were hilarious in the sense of they were goals. They were something that I wanted to achieve. But my gosh, I wasn't setting my standards very high. It was like I just wanted to be able to like make a few canvases or maybe have a small show. And it's crazy when you actually put something into the world, like how they all come true.
Yeah.
And I really mean that. Like literally every good and bad, all the bad that we speak into the world to ourselves, like, oh, I can't do this.
Yeah.
All right.
The negative.
Even simple stuff like I can't lose weight. I can't find a significant other. Like whatever somebody's going to put out into the world,
it's just going to come back to you.
It's going to come true.
It's 100%.
100%.
It's so true.
And I think I just did a good job when I was younger. I don't know. Maybe I was just delusional. I don't know what the reason was. Just speaking real positivity into the world and to myself. More and more importantly than like outside world, like how we talk to ourselves in the morning, how we talk to ourselves when we're getting ready, how we talk to ourselves doing things is absolutely everything. And I think I just did a really good job of telling myself that I can.
There's not too many people that are like that.
Yeah, it's hard too, because, you know, as a whole, society wants to tell us it's hard, and they want to tell us it's impossible. And even if they're not saying those words, they'll make it feel it. They'll make it feel like it is. Of course.
Yeah.
There's, you know, I'm an artist, and I'm sure you guys have heard the term starving artist.
Yeah.
They don't say starving doctor.
No.
They don't say starving chiropractor. They say starving artist, right? So they literally were trying to say, like, you can't do this.
Yeah.
So it was, I had to really talk myself through that.
For sure. And it's definitely a motivation too. I know, like, a lot of people get
very jealous.
No, but they get even they find a way to push themselves even more when someone tells them that they're doing something wrong, or telling them that
Sometimes.
they can't do it, right? I mean, it depends on the person, but
it could cripple somebody.
Yeah.
It could go both ways. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Definitely use it as fire.
For sure.
And I'm sure you guys do the same.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are like, well,
100%.
I can't.
Exactly.
They told me I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's negative. It's a negative input. It's hard.
Yeah. No, it's hard to fight through those, because not only are you dealing with yourself telling you that, then all of a sudden, like, let's say your parents or your significant other,
close people,
or
around
your like
you.
best friends, like, bro, you can't do this.
Yeah.
That's
right?
the worst.
Right? It's the worst.
It's the worst.
But you're right. You could use it as a fire to do it.
Yeah. It's true. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so now that you've been in the industry now for quite some time, you've established yourself. You have a great name. Like, even before meeting you, we've heard of you before. We've seen you around. I've seen your stuff downtown. Beautiful stuff, by the way, if I haven't mentioned. But when you created your vision, was it like, obviously I know your main brand is around the heart.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Yeah. It came very organically. Like, a lot of people, I have a lot of artists ask me, and they're just like, hey, like, oh, I need to create like a logo or something. Like, it's not a logo. It's really what it ultimately it becomes when it's on my shirt and hat. Like, everything I do, it's on my arm. Like, everything I do is it now. But it came very organically when I was just painting by myself, and I kept telling myself, when you follow your heart, incredible things can happen. It was that simple. And it wasn't this shape of heart. It was just a very, just like, I didn't create the shape of a heart.
Yeah.
It was just a very generic heart. But over time, and over like the more and more shows I did outside of Toronto specifically, and I kept traveling, people started recognizing me for it. And I was like, well, I'm going to lean into this, and I'm going to actually develop this out further. So that's sort of how it came to be. It just happened very organically.
Wow.
And then I just kept it running.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Because, you know, like, art is such a broad industry. Like, there's so many different ways to go about it.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of guys who just go with, like, the free flow type, to put in that sense, where
Like,
they,
you mean abstract, like, just
like different they go in different sectors. Whereas the fact that you went down into the same sector, I find that really cool. I've never seen that before.
Yeah. I still tried so much.
Yeah,
right? Like,
100%.
You see it on the front end. You see it on the finished end.
Exactly.
That it looks like it's meant to be that way. But like, I've tried so much.
Yeah.
And you have to.
Yeah.
You have to try different styles. You have to try different things. You have to, even if it comes down to podcasting, styles of questions, stuff, and you just keep changing.
Exactly.
And we're on episode 32. At episode 132, the way you structure a question won't be better or worse. It'll be different, only because you tried it 100 more times. And that's the same thing with my art. I don't know if it's got better or worse, but it's different than it used to be. Because I've done it so many times.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can look back at episode 1, see how you structure the flow versus episode 32, and you'll be like, oh wow,
yeah,
what was I doing?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Right? But it was not good or bad. It's just a development. And that's the same thing with art. Anything creative, really.
True. Yeah, that's the best way to put it.
How our editing was.
Yeah,
before.
Editing too, right?
Yeah, everything.
So, like, wasn't like, if you compare it, like, from our first step, we didn't even have editing on our first episode.
Yeah.
It was just
raw, just raw footage.
Yeah, it was whatever YouTube put as our thumbnail.
Yeah.
But now we're actually, like, making thumbnails.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And, like,
No, I mean, but that's the point. We have to keep developing, keep trying, keep pushing forward.
Yeah. Always trying to. I think we were speaking about this yesterday. I don't know, with somebody, was like, in a business standpoint, for example, if you keep repetitively do the same routine over and over again, you may be great at it, you may not be great at it, but at the same time, there's no growth, there's no scale if that's what you're going after, because you're just repetitively doing it. If you change it, like you're saying, and you keep upping it one after the other, the growth will happen over time, naturally.
100%.
Yeah. So it's cool to see. It's in art as well, obviously. That's, it's awesome. And so to go into your process, because I'm really curious about how you start a process when you're making one piece canvas or a whole abstract wall that you do, stuff like that. What is the process like? How does it go from start to finish?
Yeah. Most of the time is spent in the front end development of a piece or a mural. I do a lot of large scale murals, like full buildings.
Yes, I've seen those
like full
massive,
buildings
awesome.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of the time, because people ask me, like, how long does it, like somebody calls me like, hey, I want a custom painting.
Yeah.
How long does it take? It takes 7 to 10 days or so.
Okay.
But really 5 of those days or 2 weeks of that or a month of that is spent in the development of it, on the back end of it.
Wow.
So it's us going back and forth of like, of course, I can't sketch out what the actual painting is going to look like when it's finished, because I don't know how the paint's going to drip or how it's going to dry.
Wow.
But I can sketch out, like, because I have such a big breadth of work, I've done hundreds and hundreds of paintings over the years. Clients or, you know, potential people that are going to like invest in my art or look at my art can see what I approximately do.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do something crazy like outside of my realm.
For
so
sure.
I have my realm of work. They can look and be like, oh, I like this and I like this. But I like this color and like this color. And as long as in my realm, I can sort of create a sketch that'll look like that. Then when I have that sketch done, I can end up executing it onto a wall, onto a canvas, whatever it may be. But it all just starts with looking at my breadth of work, because there's so many paintings that I've just created off the top of my head. Yeah. And then we're talking specific custom now. Yeah. And then utilizing that as the reference point for something new.
Wow.
So, and then it's just a process of creating. But I create so much. Like we just mentioned it before off air, but like I'm in the process of moving my studio, and like right now in the studio I have 120 canvases on the go.
Yeah, I saw in your story. I saw stacks. I was like, oh my
huge.
God.
None of those canvases have a home. Like I'm just making them to make right now.
Wow.
They all will have
for
a home,
sure.
But right now, what the beauty is, like, I'm adding layers, I'm adding texture, I'm adding depth. So when someone does want a canvas, we're already halfway there.
You're already up this.
The process is the layers, is the depth, is the texture. If I'm just constantly working around the clock building that, when the time comes, I'm ready.
100%.
More efficient.
For sure. Yeah.
Wow.
And even if it does, like, and also just like keeps me nimble, keeps me going.
Keeps you going versus stopping and waiting.
Exactly.
That's just so like just to go. That's just like us when we don't run a pod. It's like, oh, okay. When we get back into it, it's like it's a wake
like
up.
A little bit of a lag.
Yeah.
100%.
So if you keep doing it,
yeah,
it keeps you going.
Yeah. No, it's important.
100%. Yeah. Awesome. And so to go more into now, like when you started getting customers coming to you and so forth, how did that feel, and how did you take that and go forward with it?
I don't even like really think I've thought about it. Like I didn't even really realize what I'm doing.
Yeah, right.
I just sort of went. Like it just happened like with small little shows. It was family and friends, and then I got into Yorkdale pretty early on in my when I left. Like so, I opened up my gallery in Yorkdale.
Yeah.
Like honestly, a year after I quit my job, or even maybe shorter, which is crazy.
Wow.
In terms of speed of like having to adjust to something to a big scale. That
Yorkdale,
was there's positive and negative to it. It was actually all positive. The only negative that came which was a positive, was so much foot traffic equals so many opinions every day, which are good. But you'd have 100 people coming into your store per hour, and 98 of them were really nice people. Just be like, oh, okay, cool art. But then 2 of them were like, this sucks. Yeah. You suck. And they didn't know I was the artist. I was just standing there.
Really?
Yeah.
You didn't tell anybody?
No, I mean, not unless someone asks. Like, who is this? I'm like, it's me.
Yeah.
If someone just walks in and be like, yo, you suck. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
But as humans, all we think about is that.
The negative.
Yeah.
Not the 98.
So it was really, right? It's crazy and it's unfortunate, but it is the reality.
Yeah.
And so I had to like really just adjust to that and understand that I can't steer my whole life based on those 2. Yeah. You know, that 2%, 1%, even if it was 10%, it doesn't matter. I can't steer my life around it. Yeah. So I had to really on the sales aspect of it, like I had to just like keep focusing on what I like to do, what I wanted to do, and that's why I'm making all those canvases right now. It's like I'm just making stuff that I feel is right. Yeah. If I try to direct to a sales direction, I would never sell anything. Because then I'm trying to do something so specific, not something. A lot of people don't want to buy my customs or stuff. They want to buy something that I created. They don't want to buy something that they create. Yeah. Or else they would just create it. Yeah. They want something that like I created from my heart and my brain, whatever. So I need to make sure I'm doing that. So, and then from a sales aspect, because I didn't come from the art world, I think it helped me a lot. I like a lot of our employees. We've had many different like employees through the galleries, through my studio.
Yeah.
We have a few interns right now, and they all go to OCAD or they go to one of the art schools.
Yep.
OCAD, if anyone doesn't know, is like one of the biggest art schools in Canada, or probably North America. It's a fantastic school, but
Amazing.
The problem with OCAD, and I've noticed because I've had many employees from there, is they're not taught the business side at all, the sales side at all, the marketing side at all. Wow. They are fantastic artists. But like right now we have an employee she's fantastic artist, and she's worried about the brushes used and the paint used. I'm like, guys, no one cares. No one cares.
Yeah.
Like no one knows what type of brush you use.
No.
No one knows what type of paint you use.
No idea.
No one would have no clue.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a famous artist, his name's Basquiat. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of him. I mean, he used literal trash from the side of the road.
Yeah.
And literal, like not even brushes, like sticks to paint. His paintings are hundreds of millions of dollars. Yeah. So is there not proof that the material doesn't actually matter? The thought process, the execution, all the fun stuff matters. And they're so caught up in that side of it, they're not even thinking about the sales side of it. And you don't have to make it all about sales. I'm not saying like that's what we should create for.
Yeah.
But we should have some concept.
For sure.
We should have just some concept. Like at least keep like I said at the beginning,
structure.
I said if I'm making a canvas for 100, at least it needs to sell 2 so I can buy 200, so I can at least buy 2 canvases.
Yeah.
And then I've just, because of the business side, I've just went on a just sheer supply and demand. So like my canvases were $200, then they were 2,000 and they sold out. Wow. Then there's 6,000, they sold out. Now they're 12,000, they sold out. Now they're 25,000 and they sell. So I'm like, okay, let's just keep that rolling.
Wow.
But it's just been organic because I've managed myself.
Yeah.
No third party, just my wife and I, and that's it.
That's the best way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love hearing that, like starting from nothing, you created the vision, you created it, and you built it to what it is now.
And you executed it.
Just through motivation. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Good for you. Congrats on that.
Thanks.
And so just to go off into more of the business side of things, when you scaled it from then to now, did you ever look and go back and say like, oh, I wish I did this back then, I wish I did that, or you happy where it is?
No, it's a tough one. It's a
For
good question. It's a really tough one. I definitely don't regret anything. Yeah. There's definitely things that I look back on in galleries that I did and shows that I did where I'm like, oh, I could have milked that more.
Yeah.
I could have done more.
Yeah.
Not differently.
Yeah.
I don't think I would do anything differently, but I definitely could have capitalized on a lot more. Like one, to give you an example of what I mean by that. Yorkdale was obviously really big for us. I did one event at the start. I did 3 different galleries in Yorkdale, all very, very big scale.
Yeah.
And I did one event at the beginning of all of those shows. They were always like all media and like big sellout shows, really, really cool.
Wow.
Why didn't I do one a month? They wouldn't have been as big. They wouldn't have been as thing, but like I could have stirred up new media and new things every month. And there was nothing stopping me from doing that.
Wow.
Or, you know Ernesto and Anthony and the boys over there.
Yeah.
And we did an event at one of my, we did a speaking event where we brought in like a bunch of entrepreneurs. We did a panel discussion at one of my galleries. It was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Why didn't I do one a month? So I look back at that and I'm like, I had this very public space that I had full access to, was mine.
Yeah.
My name on the front. And I didn't like milk it as much as I should have.
Yeah.
Not Yorkdale. I'm saying there's a bunch of, I'm not only saying Yorkdale, I'm saying there's so many different things like that I've done where I was like, wow, I could have done a lot more with that. Why didn't I?
Huh.
And I say that's the only thing
I
would say that I could. But now I'm looking at it like I just opened up a new gallery in another gallery that I have is in the Novotel downtown near the station.
Cool.
And they have a space where we can do speakers. So I'm planning in like late April, early May to do some speaking engagement stuff there.
Really cool.
Because why not?
Yeah.
Right. And I just think that I should.
Yep.
So that's really what it comes down to is like, let me figure out how to, keep pushing, keep doing different things. And yeah.
That's awesome. And to go off that, because the whole speaking aspect of it and putting yourself out there and your art, was that a major play for you? Obviously, even today now, like the social media side of things and creating a space online to push your art?
Yeah. I love the motivational side of the world and this side of the world, the podcast side of the world. Just as a consumer, like I like listening, I like learning. I go to a ton of events.
Big education from it.
Yeah, I'm going to Grant Cardone's event next week.
Oh, the 10X, yeah.
I did a big collaboration with them over the last couple of years. So
wow.
I have 5 paintings on display there. And they're big collectors of mine. I'm so grateful. But all those type of events I love.
Yeah.
Because they're so important to learn.
Yeah.
So I think naturally, because a lot of my collectors, a lot of people, there's the Brad Lees of the world, the Ryan Panettas of the world, they collect my artwork. So I've been on their podcast because of that.
Yep.
So I think subliminally, it's turned into like a part of my business.
Wow.
Because you never know who's listening.
Yeah.
You know, I have a really cool story. Do you know Brad Lee?
Yeah.
So
yes.
I was on Brad Lee's podcast in Vegas, and a year, almost a year after I was on the podcast, some random person in Sydney, Australia, listened to it.
Wow.
And he's like, "Oh, I like this guy," and he calls me like literally out of the blue, like DMs me out of the blue. He's like, "Hey, I own a gallery in Sydney, Australia. So heard you on Brad Lee, like your art. You want to do a show here?"
Wow.
What? In Sydney, Australia? And he was just a really cool dude, and we become really, really good friends. I ended up doing a huge show in Sydney, going down to Sydney. Now I have a full gallery, like representing my artwork. And
that's amazing.
We've sold an extreme amount of art in Sydney, Australia from a podcast clip.
Wow.
Who would have thought that? I could never have planned that.
Yeah.
Right? You don't know. You never know who's going to just stumble on.
Yeah, you never know.
You talking.
You never know.
And I happen to be talking about business and art at the same time.
Yeah.
He's like, "Wait, what's this? Who's this guy?"
Yeah.
And it was so that's why I do it.
Wow.
Because not only do I like it, so first and foremost, I don't ever expect anything to come from anything, but you just never know.
Yeah. It opens doors.
It opens doors.
Yeah.
But like there's this concept that like it bugs me so much because I've fallen victim to it so many times, which is I always think that there's going to be that huge tipping point. I always think that like that podcast, that client, that thing is going to be
and it keeps
the
you.
one.
Yeah. You get
the
caught up in
truth is,
it.
Yeah, you think it's going to be this big break.
Yeah.
And the truth is that it's all these little cracks, these little steps that lead to a big break. Because you look back, and I mentioned all those people that I was on the podcast with. I mentioned all those clients. I'm like, that was the break. It was the 100 of them that led to the quote unquote break. It wasn't one client. It wasn't one podcast. It wasn't one installation or mural. It was all of it. And I think once we start looking at it, like stop putting so much weight into the singulars and look at the whole picture, it becomes a lot more beautiful.
That you said it best, honestly. And it goes to the point of like when you work hard for something, like you got to put in the time and you got to put in the effort. If you don't put it, you're never going to get to where you want to go.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's all those little things.
100%. Even for you guys, think about this. You're at 32 episodes. It doesn't matter who the guest is. Say one guest, for some reason, one clip goes viral, argument's sake. Now, all of a sudden, someone likes you. They're like, "Oh, that was a really cool clip. Now let me look what else you guys done." And you're like, imagine you only had 3 episodes.
Yeah.
Or imagine you only have 32. I don't know if that big, is that a lot or not? I don't really know, right?
Yeah.
It's all subjective, but I'm saying is you're doing it. So people have a chance to come see more.
100%.
If you weren't putting in those work, you weren't putting in those things, that's what leads to the break.
Yeah.
It's that there's a lot of time put in, on the back end.
It's so true. And a lot of people don't see that. Like in art, in build, like no matter what you do, they don't see the time aspect. They just see you do something, and then
they just judge
when
you
something
on that.
happens, it's like, oh my God, look at this guy.
Yeah.
It's true. It's awesome. It's awesome. Just to go back, because I'm curious, like you're saying you have a lot of employees now and they go to art schools and stuff like that. When you have people at a younger age, what's your biggest advice in your industry that you give them when they're starting off and trying to get into art? Yeah.
So right now, actually, because the galleries are standalone, we only have one employee. But But as a whole, I'll give advice outside the art world because art world doesn't matter. Art world's weird. My advice to every single person is to do a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. And so when I say that, that sounds very vague. What I mean is, if you guys think podcasting has a 1% chance, even a decimal % chance, do it a ton. If you think whatever it is you want to give it a shot, like do a lot of it. It's the only chance. It's a numbers game. Like everything that we do is a percentage numbers game. Like we have to get a lot out into the world. We have to do a lot. We have to put the reps in. We know the concept of 10,000 hours. We know the concept of just putting a lot onto the world, but people underestimate that. Like, no, I literally mean do a lot.
Yeah.
Like that's
too much to the point. Yeah.
Right. Do so much to the point where it's like, I can't help but win. Right. And it's just sheer volume. I really believe in. So yeah.
Wow. That's true. Yeah. Great way to put it. And to go into challenges. Like everyone has a challenge in their industry. We have challenges, editing, background, and stuff like that. Was there ever something that like made you feel like you were held back in the industry?
Well, I mean, yeah, in any new industry that you go into, like there's no grounds for you to be there. Like I came from the finance world, so all of the reason I did everything on my own, I opened up my own galleries, represent myself, is because for the first 3 years I was reaching out to galleries, like, who's this punk? Like, leave us alone.
Yeah.
Like, you don't. Who are you?
Yeah.
Right. And they're not wrong for saying that. Who am I? Like, why do I even think I'm entitled enough to be in their gallery? Why do I think that I'm entitled enough to be represented by this show or this space, or I could do a show in Dubai? Why do I even think I could do that? I haven't done enough. And the word done enough doesn't mean time. It doesn't mean I have to spend more years. I just need to do more. I need to think outside the box more. I need to try more things. And that's when doors started to open up. So challenges really were me thinking, and society making me think that, like, I believe we could do everything.
Yeah.
But are we owed anything?
No.
Are we, like, do I deserve anything? No, I'm not owed anything. I got to work for it. I got to put in the hours, to work super hard, try everything. And then small things will start to come through. So I think the biggest challenge has been, like, my own brain is like,
Yeah.
bro, I think I could do everything.
Yeah.
No, genuinely, I really do. But I have to work to it. I gotta figure out how.
Yep.
It doesn't just come.
It's a process.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's sick.
That's been the biggest challenge. And I think a lot of us face that. Like, it's just like, we start a podcast. We do a gallery. Like, well, what do you mean? I don't have 2 million listeners every episode now?
Yeah.
Why?
Why am I not famous
not?
already? Yeah.
Why
yeah.
not?
Yeah.
I should. I'm that good.
Yeah.
Right?
It's so true.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like when everyone wants to start someone, there's that side of them that's like hesitant, like, oh, I don't know how to start it, I don't know what to do, where to go. It's just, you just gotta try. You just have to start. Whether you fail at it, failing's, from my perspective, it's the best thing you can possibly do.
But there's a lot of people that are scared of failing.
Yeah,
And
the fear of it,
and scared of, like, the criticism.
They feel the criticism. There you go.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're not worried about failing. They don't even care. They're worried about what everyone's going to say about them failing. And lucky enough, I failed so many times. Awesome.
Yeah.
Very big projects. Very big dollar projects.
Wow.
Very big public projects. Like, have been very big failures for me, which are great because I just keep going.
Yeah.
And you realize, like, it doesn't really matter. Like, yeah, the finances matter. Yeah, this closing down matters. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Yes, they all matter. Of course, I'm not underestimating any of the failures.
Yeah.
But as long as I keep pushing, they can't stop me.
Yeah.
Like, as long as you keep going, they can't stop you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure with, like, your baseball, you probably learned like a lot from, like, people criticizing you, because I play hockey.
Yeah.
And there's been so many people that have criticized me.
Yeah.
And I'm one to, like, to use that criticism and, like, not to, like, say it bad. Like, I always like to prove them wrong.
Of course. I mean, listen, I'm 5'9", and I was a pitcher at a Division I NCAA school. No, I shouldn't have been. Right? Like, I'm not. I didn't throw overly hard. I just worked harder than everybody. So of course I had criticism, like, you're gonna play Division I in NCAA, like Alabama State. Like, no, you're not. Yes, I am. I'm gonna make it work. So I use that to use it as fire, for sure. You have to.
Wow.
Because
So
hard
that's-
work beats talent.
All day. Yeah.
When the talent's not working hard.
That's
Yeah.
it. I like that.
Awesome. I have an art question, because I've like, personally, I don't know it very well. I'm getting more into it now. I like consuming art and looking at things like that. But I have a question in terms of the industry. When you see, as not as a stereotype, but like that there's art out there that is too expensive, or that is in a very high sector population, very niche and so forth. And then you have art that's for like an everyday consumer. What is your opinion on that? Is it as art as a whole, or is it all together?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first, cheap or too expensive is a relative term.
Okay.
I mean, like, if I told you a $1,000 painting, is that expensive or cheap?
It's art is, like, I think the
I mean, it would
price
depend
is,
the size, but
I think, like, the piece
Huge.
of art.
Big.
then I would say it's cheap.
Yeah.
If it's big.
Yeah, but if you spoke to someone who never bought art in
Yeah.
their life and
They
didn't
might
have
think
much
it's
money, they'd be like,
expensive.
that's so expensive.
Yeah.
But then if I said $1 million piece that's
Yeah.
12 inches,
Yeah.
you'd be like, that's too expensive.
Yeah.
But if I told you you can buy that $1 million piece, it's really a $12 million piece, but you're buying it for one, you'd be like, that's actually cheap. So it's so relative to the consumer and who's willing to spend the story behind it. Now, there is a difference between just wall art or like just wall decor and artwork. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it was hand painted, because there's a lot of prints that are like, you know, multiples that are, you know, millions and millions of dollars. Like Andy Warhol, famously like barely touched any of his artwork. They were all screen prints.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's a art form. But he didn't hand paint everything. Wow. So, and there's paintings are millions of dollars. So you look at that and you're like, well, I don't get it anymore. Like, or there's a painting of a red dot. That's like $20 million.
Yeah.
That doesn't even make really sense.
Is it justifiable?
The story, well, to the consumer it is. Like, whoever has 20, because it goes back to it being relative. Who's ever spending $20 million on a painting didn't think of 20 million like you and I thought of 20 million.
Yeah.
20 million could be $20. I don't know, argument's sake.
Yeah.
So art is subjective in that sense, because A, you need to love it. A, it needs to look good. But then B, at that scale, if we're going to talk about the two different scales of it, there's decor that you just throw up on a wall. And then there's investable art. Mm-hmm. There's art that, you know, what's happening with me now is a lot of collectors that buy $100,000 to $100,000 paintings, like one singular painting, can look at someone like me and be like, oh, Anthony's art canvases are $25,000 a piece. So I could buy 5 for the same price that I can buy one of these other ones, and there's a potential future investment there because his art is eventually going to be $100,000 or $200,000. You could look at it like that. I know some people have.
It's like sport cards.
Exactly. Yeah. Or anything in the collectible space. I know some people have looked at it that way. I don't ever like steer or create with that concept. Yeah. And it hasn't happened to me at scale, but I'm sure it will. I'm sure it has. And I'm sure it will continue.
It already is, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it will continue. And I just think that, like, so to your question, there's a difference between just decor, like that you buy at like Home Sense and stuff like that, and original art. But pricing is so tough because it all doesn't matter.
I guess it all depends on that piece and what they want.
Whoever will pay for it.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. And no, it doesn't even depend on the piece.
Really?
Because what you think is pretty, he'll think is ugly. Yeah. What you think is ugly, he'll think is pretty. And there's no right or wrong. Like I told you a story about Yorkdale. How could someone walk in 1 minute and be like, this is beautiful, and then 1 minute later walk in and say this sucks? How does that make sense?
Yeah. They always say like an art piece can like speak 1,000 words.
For sure.
It's like it could be good words, bad words. Yeah. It's all interpretation. 100%. What people think.
100%. So it's just like that's why I have to go back to like following hard and doing what I love, because if I let the market steer me, I don't even know what a painting would look like.
That's so
just
true.
Black it out.
Black and white.
Yeah, that's all. One brush. It would be one big brush, because you can't make everyone happy.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah. I think that's one of the, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's one of the only industries that is like that, in a sense, that it has its own opinion based.
Well, I mean, for sure it's one of them, but music is the same way.
Yes,
acting is the same way.
The artist realm.
Architecture is the same way.
For sure.
Like I could see a piece of architecture, a building that has a famous architect's design, and be like, that's ugly. Yeah. But then it wins awards.
Yeah.
Right? So anything that has a little bit of touch of, I mean, look, we're the chairs here. Like, that chair I think is super cool. Yeah. I'm sure my mom she probably wouldn't like it. Yeah. I don't know.
Exactly.
Like, for argument's sake, but it probably sells. Yeah. So the list of any like furniture design, clothing design. Yeah. I see a pair of pants. I'm like, why would anyone wear those? Yeah. But they're selling. So someone's wearing them. Yeah. Right. So the list goes on. Yeah, it's true. That's true. It's not just art. Art has this undertone because of the media headlines, like $100 million. Yes. Right. That's just like tax fraud and like something like that at that price point. But anything under that is like, it's all subjective. That's so cool. Yeah. That's awesome. I find it so interesting because from like a perspective of chairs too. Yeah. Like we don't like sometimes we see it that way when a designer, okay, I like this. That's the vision. That's it. And then do you say it's ugly? Yeah. Sometimes you could 100%. You're like, I would never put that there. But then there's a side of you, like as an artist or as someone who understands the industry, you're like, this doesn't fit this space or this doesn't look for that. You know what I mean? But you could have a client in your back pocket. They may want that specifically. Exactly. It doesn't have to fit with the overall thing. Exactly. But you may have a client be like, actually, they have a very eccentric house. Yeah. They're gonna like this. Yeah. Right. And you don't know. But yeah, that's really that's the beauty of it. Yeah, it's so true. Yeah. Each place has its own. For sure. Wow. Yeah. Cool. And so to go to our question of choice, that we always love to ask and really understand, because everybody in the perspective either believes in it or doesn't believe in it or has their own opinion on it. How do you balance your lifestyle
day to day being an artist, or when you started finance and your data? I know you're also a father.
Yeah.
Congrats on that as well. I know you just had a recent child.
I have a 4-year-old and a 1-month-old.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
So how do you balance your whole lifestyle as a whole?
I think that we've done a good job because, and balance is fake, right? Like there's no such. I'll say one thing before that. I really dislike the industry that a lot of the gurus and inspirational people and motivational people and business executives now will say, like, you need to be balanced. You need to have a morning routine. You need to do all this stuff. But then you looked at them from 20 to 40 and they never saw their kids, or they never did anything. They never lifted their head up off their desk. And you go, well, now you're balanced. Sure, you sold your company. You're hanging out in Bahamas. Like, of course it's balanced now. Yeah. So I've tried to, I've always zoomed myself out of that narrative and look back in and, like, how can I properly, instill balance in my life? So, for example, my wife works with me. We do everything together. Mm-hmm. So what that's allowed for us to do is, like, there's many nights, many mornings where I'm not at home. Like, I have to go to the studio. I have meetings. We have a podcast in the morning. We have this, that, and the other, whatever it may be. But she gets to travel with me, meaning my kids get to travel with me. So every time we went on a trip to, like, me doing a mural, or we never really, I wouldn't say they're all vacations. It's like I went to meet a client. I went to do a mural. I went to deliver a painting. We would tack on 3 or 4 days for vacation. Now, another thing that I'm doing to even talk about more balance is I'm moving my studio home. So we're building out a studio at the house.
Nice. That's so cool.
Mainly because there was so many times at night, like, I would want to go back to the studio, but then I'd be like, I'm hanging out with my son, or we're going to, like, take him to baseball, or we're going to go do something. And I was like, I don't want to go back to the studio. I'm going to just leave them right now. It's getting harder as I get older, because I have dependents, and we have a house overhead. We have responsibilities. You want to, like, so I'm like, okay, let me figure out how to do this. So I've really taken control of the balance aspect of it. And been like, well, my wife, she's incredible, and I'm so lucky for her. But she's never gonna be like, oh, you're not around. Like, I am around.
Yeah.
And when I'm not, like, I'm going to Miami next week. I'm gone for 6 days. I'm not gonna see him for 6 days.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll talk to them a lot, but I double down on the times that I do have to, like, balance. You want to talk about balance? Like, I to balance out when I'm not here, because just the reality. Because I know a lot of people that don't do. Even I know people, or we know people. I'm sure you guys know people too. They're like, oh, they can say, like, oh, I don't spend time away from my girlfriend, but when they're with them or wife, but when they're with them, what are they doing? They're sitting on their phones watching Netflix. Yeah. What are they doing? Are they actually like
involved
together?
In the
like, are they actually doing things together? Are they going? And I'm not saying spend money. Are they going to the park with the kids or their wife? Are they doing things? Probably not. So I just try to really do things, and I think that's the way that I've been able to stay balanced.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So it's but balance is tricky. Like, it's a tricky dynamic.
Very. Some people say you can't have balance at all, and some people say it's the key to being successful. Like,
what do you guys believe? Now that you've asked the question a bunch of times, and, like, that's the whole concept of the podcast. What do you believe?
I think it's, like, similar to, like, it's not going to be all the time. When you have a goal and you have something that you want to work towards, you can't have balance all the time. It's impossible. But I also understand that having, like, there's burnouts at times. Sure. Like, you have to have an outlet to go to, something that keeps you floating and keeps your mind away from things, or else it can be a negative outlay. If you just keep going at something, you never stop. You need some sort of balance to an extent.
Yeah. Sure.
Will that change when you get to, like you said, those people, that point where they're gurus and they're massive and all they do is give advice all day? Yeah. Like, do you have that time to now chill out and have a schedule? Yeah. But I don't know. We'll see.
I think it's very, like, subjective. Like, there's some people that might find, like, busyness as, like, their balance. And there's some people that, like, just like to totally shut down, and that's their balance. Yeah. So I feel like it just depends on the person.
Just being self-aware, like, knowing what, not letting society steer you, and just letting you, like, what makes you happy. Yeah. And some people just, like you just said, like, people are just, like, doing nothing. That's how they can reset. Cool. All good. Right. Not judging yourself based on that.
Yeah. That's so true. Awesome. Great.
Love it.
Thank you, Anthony, for coming.
Thank you.
We appreciate it so much.
Grateful.
Happy to have you on.
Thank you guys so much, and happy we made this work.
And also, guys, if you haven't already, I'm sure you have, check out his art. We're also bought a piece that we're going to put here somewhere. We're going to figure out where. Cool. And then,
Thank you.
It's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.